Voting is a civic duty. Let's register on the electoral list. This is a message from Equinoxe Television.
Hi there to all of you viewers of Equinoxe Television. It's 6 p.m. past the clock here in Douala, and it's time for the news in the English language. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our Majesties, this evening circulation was largely perturbed in the Douala 4 area in Bonaberry, precisely around Cartridge, following a Hollywood-style accident that was late yesterday, and it took away the lives of at least 2 persons. This happened after a truck violently hit commuters who were struggling to assist victims of a previous road accident in Bonaberry. Details coming up next. And still in Bonaberry, we will tell you of this act described as inhuman by locals. A said aunt dipped the hands of her nephew, who is less than 3 years old, in very hot boiling water. She claims the little baby poured away her pot of soup. Our reporters went to where the incident happened. You will have details also in this news edition. And as we promised you yesterday in the second part of the news, we bring to you details of the findings of the Franco-Cameroonian Commission put in place to investigate the atrocities committed by France in Cameroon. What are some of those findings? Stay tuned for more in the second part of the news. Professor Willie Brod Zengoa, the lone Anglophone in that commission, is our guest tonight. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for the confidence. At least 2 persons perished in a fatal road accident which happened around Cartridge in Bonaberry in the Douala 4 subdivision. The accident on Wednesday night involved 2 trucks, reckless driving, lack of street lights, and also the non-respect of traffic lights caused the accident, as Innocent Azet tells us in this report, which comes up next.
Yeah, exactly at Cadre Etage Bonaberry Douala 4 subdivision, where this accident occurred Wednesday evening at about 10 p.m. and we are here today to gather the exact facts.
At 8 p.m, the first accident, that is a collision with no casualty, occurred involving a RAV car jeep and a trailer transporting iron rods. After a police inquiry, the faulty jeep was removed from the road. Only that the truck stationed on the spot till around 9 to 10 p.m. due to a breakdown. His driver was under trying to fix the fault. Unfortunately for him, another speeding truck transporting cement violently hit his truck from behind, which caused it to move on him. He died instantly. The cement truck diverted to the other truck, hitting a taxi transporting passengers from Ryle. No one on board the taxi died except for severe injuries sustained by some of the passengers.
Le chauffeur qui était dedans, ça a juste écrasé ses pieds. Il y avait une femme dans le taxi là. La femme elle sortait, elle n'avait rien.
The second person who died on the spot was an assistant driver of the cement truck who was sitting at the door. His legs were cut off and he bled to death.
On a même vu les autres qui étaient ici là. Il y avait les sacs de ciment partout, la fumée partout.
His 2 colleagues, driver and another assistant, were rushed to the Lakentini hospital in critical conditions alongside passengers of the taxi. Reckless driving by the cement truck driver and lack of street lights are highlighted as causes of the accident.
There was no street light. If there was street light, he could have seen this other car in front of him. There was no signal. Triangles was not there. Though he couldn't see this car. That's why he jammed it.
The cement truck and taxi were severely damaged. They were removed from the road before circulation was re-established. Sources say the bags of cement the truck was transporting were carried away by some opportunists on the scene.
Those are the facts that we gathered here at Cadre Etage Bonaberry Douala 4 subdivision. For Equinoxe Television News, we are Chief Robert Mukobe and Innocent Azet.
Thank you, Innocent. Sad indeed, and our sincere condolences to the bereaved families. Now, still in Bonaberry, we bring to you this story which seems somehow unbelievable. The hands of a less than 3-year-old child have been burnt by His aunt at the Beseke Palestine neighborhood, still in Bonaberi in the Douala 4 area. The child had his hands plunged into very hot boiling water after his aunt accused him of pouring away her pot of soup. Immaculate Fogwe is our lady on the beat.
At the age of 2 years 7 months, Brian Aloju is already a victim of circumstance. The toddler had his hands burnt by his own aunt, who accused him of throwing her pot of soup. The unfortunate incident occurred at Biseke Palestine, a neighborhood in Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision. When I came back home, I was informed by other kids that Brian is the one who threw my pot of soup. Out of anger, I used the same pot to boil water in it and plunged his hands inside. The toddler, who was abandoned by his own biological mother immediately after birth, was picked up by the said aunt, who till date has been the one taking care of him. I was called up by a lady who informed me that my younger brother's child had been abandoned along the road in New Bell. When I got there, I asked about the whereabouts of his mother, and I was told she was nowhere to be found. So for the past 2 years 7 months, I have been the one taking care of the child. The timely intervention of the Defense and Security Forces at the residence of the accused saved her from being lynched by the angry population. After hearing about what happened, I immediately asked that the child be taken to a health facility. I sent money so they could commence treatment immediately. I knew the woman's life was in danger, so I called the Defense and Security Forces to inform them about the case. The furious neighbors are demanding that the lady be punished accordingly and that she should equally be chased out of the neighborhood. She claims what she did was not intentional, but then she still needs to be punished. Our children are not even safe. If she can do such to her own nephew, what more of her own children? At press hour, the accused was at home taking care of the toddler. Meantime, she is expected to appear before the National Gendarmerie Brigade of Bonaberi to answer for her crime.
Sad story indeed. Now let's talk something else. A Cameroonian has been killed in Italy by a group of gang. The news about the death of 20-year-old Jordan Arnaud has left his family back in Cameroon in total state of confusion and shock, because Arnaud traveled to Italy with the hope of coming back to give better life to his family. Samantha Gabriel tells us more in the report that comes up next.
At the family compound of Jordan Arnaud in the Soumangier neighborhood of Bilonge, Douala 3 subdivision, it was a very sad grandmother that we met in tears after getting the news of the death of her grandson. The grandson had already made many promises to the grandma before traveling. Unfortunately, the wish to change the lifestyle of the family won't come to pass. My grandson, before traveling, told me that he will fight hard to get his documents, then come back to Cameroon to tell us how it was hard to make a living outside Cameroon. I was waiting for him. I have become stranded. He promised to come build a story building on our land, but now all that dream is gone. Jordan Arnaud, who had successfully crossed into Italy, was allegedly stabbed to death by a group of gang. The news shocked even his brother back in Cameroon. I was called and informed about the attack on my brother. The cousin who called me told me that my kid brother was stabbed to the extent that his aggressors broke the knife inside his body, which led to his death. I didn't know how to go about telling our grandmother, because about 3 days before his death, he talked with our grandma. Jordan Arnaud left a family that worked extremely hard before putting food on their table and had as objective to travel and work harder to stop the suffering the family was passing through.
Mon petit frère, avant de voyager,
my kid brother, before traveling, was a hustler. Since we are a family that worked hard, he made and sold pillows, but he always said one day he has to travel to come back and change our standards of living.
Tout ce qu'il doit faire, c'est partir pour venir changer notre vie.
As it stands, for the corpse of Jordan Arnaud to return to Cameroon, several millions of francs CFA have been demanded, and the family is requesting for help.
Let's now talk something else. Today, February 13, is being observed worldwide as World Radio Day, and the commemoration comes at a time that several radio stations have been forced to shut their doors, especially in the northwest and southwest regions, because of insecurity and uncertainty. Our reporter Stella in Bamenda spoke to some of the men and women behind the microphone, whom, despite the challenges, have continued to inform, educate, and entertain their public. Our report.
The armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon has had a toll on the media landscape, particularly on the radio.
We're having a very challenging landscape, especially in the last 8 years. Not fewer than 10 radio stations have folded up, and this also means that lots of radio workers have gone out of their jobs, and this is very, very disappointing and frightening as well.
Behind this small wooden desk sits a presenter whose voice is familiar to thousands who tune in daily seeking information.
Whenever I step into the studio, I know I'm not just talking to the microphone. I'm talking to a mother preparing breakfast, a taxi driver navigating the traffic, and above all, a student eager to learn. Therefore, radio is that one friend we can always count on.
In a city where internet access can be unreliable and newspapers are scarce, the radio fills an important gap.
More pressure for me because I get all information there. Any information, in the one way Okada they do, I'm not correct at the year 2 radio, then I'll advise them to radio too.
For many residents, the radio is not just about news, it is also a platform for cultural preservation and awareness-raising campaigns.
It is a medium that is widely used by most people, and especially people in the remote areas. We use it to sensitize the population about hate speech mitigation, climate change disinformation.
Despite its enduring presence, the industry faces many challenges.
We are limited with our coverage because of the crisis. Sometimes we go for 1 week without electricity, but we must continue to do what we have to do because even the population, the community are depending on us for information.
On this World Radio Day, media practitioners call for more support to ensure radio continues to serve as a reliable platform for dialogue, education and peace building. In an ever-changing world, the radio remains constant and needs to be protected.
And now, President Paul Biya, the president of Cameroon, is 92 years old today. On the occasion of his birthday, we are taking you through his quick rise in the administrative mechanism of Cameroon. He was designated minister delegate at the presidency when he was only 29 years old. At 42, President Paul Biya became the prime minister. President at the age of 49, Babila Jonathan tells us more today, President Paul Biya's 92nd anniversary.
Paul Barthélemy Biya Mbimvondo was born in the village of Mvomeka in what is now the south region of Cameroon on the 13th of February 1933. He studied at Lycée Général Leclerc Yaoundé and in France at Lycée Louis le Grand, Paris, going on to the Institut des Hautes Études d'Outre-mer, where he graduated in 1961 with a higher education diploma in public law. As a chargé de mission in post-independence 1960s Cameroon, Biya rose to prominence under President Amadou Ahidjo after becoming director of the cabinet of the then Minister of National Education in January 1964 and Secretary General of the Ministry of National Education in July 1965. He was named Director of the Civil Cabinet of the Presidency of the Republic in December 1967 and Secretary General of the Presidency, while remaining Director of the Civil Cabinet in January 1968. He gained the rank of minister in August 1968 and the rank of Minister of State in June 1970, while remaining Secretary General of the Presidency. Following the creation of a unitary state in 1972, he became Prime Minister of Cameroon 30th June 1975. In June 1979, a new law designated the Prime Minister as the President's constitutional successor. President Amadou Ahidjo unexpectedly announced his resignation 4th of November 1982, and Paul Biya accordingly succeeded him as President of Cameroon on the 6th of November 1982. He has been leading the country for the past 42 years.
Happy 92nd birthday, Mr. President. And that does it for the first part of the news. Let's now move right away to Talking Point. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight is Professor Willie Brod Zingwai. He is a lone Anglophone in the joint Franco-Cameroonian Commission, which was set up to investigate and give findings on the atrocities caused by France in Cameroon that was in the early 40s. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting to be my guest tonight.
Well, thank you very much for coming to talk with me. The very first thing I want to say, the Commission de Mémoire, because we are mixing up two things. There was a commission, joint commission, with two presidents, and each president had a specificity, a specific area of focus. We had the memory and artistic aspect of the work, which was presided over by the artist Blik Bassi, and then we had the research component of the work, which was made up of 14 Cameroonian researchers, 14 French researchers under the presidency of Madame Karine Ramondi. And it is that commission, if we are talking about a report that we submitted to Macron and Biya on the 21st and 28th of January respectively, the commission that was headed by Ramondi, and it is the research.
Professor Willie Brod, can you tell us more about those who were involved in that commission? Principally, how were you guys selected?
Well, let's begin by selection first. How we were selected, we don't know. We just had calls from left and right, and I think that it was based on our experience and what we have done before. I think there was a careful CV check, and then we were called upon to meet for the very first time. Let me see, 14 researchers came together, many of whom had not met the others, and we were given the task to engage in finding out, in researching to know exactly the French involvement in the nationalist and opposition struggle in Cameroon from 1945 to 1971. How we did it was that we engaged in let me say, qualitative research procedure. There is a new research methodology which is on how to do research in conflict areas. I think we address ourselves with. Let me note that we went to the archives in Cameroon, in France, in Great Britain, in the Netherlands, Nigeria, the USA. So we actually went over 1,100 boxes of archival documents, and permit me say that we had newly declassified documents numbering up to 2,300, and I should say that we had about 10 people who actually surrendered their private archives. So doing that was very important for us, and permit me say that all necessary archives, the French government, the Cameroon government decided to open up into the archives.
Okay, Prof. From your findings, we noticed that you had to visit several universities, researchers, and also some interior parts of the country. So tell us, how did your job go on the field?
We needed to get all of the data. We went to the field and university after university and tried to know all the students, all the professors who have written on areas related to the research area. And we actually had copies of all of these works in all of the universities. University of Yaoundé, University of Bamenda, University of Garoua, Maroua, Ngaoundéré, short, all documents which we could find. Now, when we gathered all of these, going to the field and getting to the areas, do we have mass graves? Any information we got, we went to the field. After getting all of this, we started doing analysis of the facts and the figures.
Okay. From what you're saying, Prof, can we say your job was not only cumbersome on the field, but also very daunting?
To back, really daunting task.
How?
We had no rest. I can tell you that nobody wrote any aspect of the work individually. From the very first page to the last page, we did it as a team. And therefore, it was not something like, well, the French researchers should write aspects of French history while Cameroonian researchers no. We went in systematically, step by step, perusing the documents, writing, cross-reading, and debating over facts and figures. And of course, yes, it was really a daunting task. Sometimes, at some point, it was very challenging that, I should say challenging and discouraging, because some people could have wanted to withdraw based on where we went to, taking the risk to go to some very risky areas, I should say. For example, in Kumba, we had to interview in one of the forests in the Kumba area, out of Kumba, where the Amba guys were very, very active. We had to go there because we learned that there was a 98-year-old man there who had left the area. We had to take the risk. So as a matter of fact, it was a daunting task. Reading through documents in French and English, yes, it was a daunting task, but very exciting.
Professor Willie Brodzinkwa, we want to know, how did it feel to be the only Anglophone in that commission?
I did not feel Anglophone in the commission. I felt being a researcher. Because when we were selected, the very first thing is that we should forget about our identities. Right. Being Cameroonian, being French, being Anglophone, being Francophone, we adopted a new garment, and the garment was the garment of researchers. That is what I wore. That is what we wore from the onset. But as a matter of fact, it was speaking from another perspective, in terms of language, in terms of whether these nationalist violence extended to the current northwest and southwest regions was also a daunting task. So we were wearing one garment and we worked as one.
Professor, let's now talk reparation. How can or will the victims in Cameroon be compensated for all the atrocities or hurts which was caused them by the French government or French nationals in the yesteryears?
I'm a historian and we are historians. We did not go in to be lawyers and magistrates and people of the law courts or politicians. The role of the historian is not to pass judgment and call for reparations and describe the war as either war crime or what have you. Let me note that we had a clear mandate. Our mandate was to get to the field, get as much documents as possible, investigate and tell the people whether, evaluate the French engagement in this war. Was there a war? Let me note that François Fillon in 2009 overtly said that the French had died. In 2015, François Hollande said, well, there was some violence, not war. It was only Macron in 2022 who said that there was war. So you see that there's been an evolution. So it was incumbent on President Biya and Macron to say, with these backgrounds of diverse ideas as to whether there was war or not, people, researchers who have experience should be brought together and sent to the field to make things clearer. So our role was to get this documentation and put the facts and figures straight, and not to pass judgment.
Okay, now, Professor Willie Broad, some, I don't want to say most Cameroonians, think our history has always been somehow distorted. How do you intend to ensure that young Cameroonians get to know more about what the French did in Cameroon several years back?
Well, you're right. It is not only the Cameroonian youth who are going to learn much more. It had been rumored. People have lived the experience. It has been mentioned in some of the few books which exist on the history of Cameroon. But let me note that the French average citizen had never known that there was violence or that there was the French engaged in any war in Cameroon. They have almost always been thinking about the war in Algeria. So one of the very first things is that this new knowledge or old knowledge made public now would be put on the public space. So it is not only going to be in Cameroon schools and colleges, it's also going to be some sort of a global educational tendency which will be made public. So in France, in Europe, people are going to avail, they're going to have readily available documents that, yes, the French were not only engaged in violence, but were engaged in outright warfare in Cameroon.
Now, Prof, we also got information that somehow your commission was set up to the disfavor of another commission which had earlier been set up to rewrite the history of Cameroon. What's your response to that?
Well, these are questions of polemics, and each time you bring the points of polemics, it gets to some intrigues. Let me note that I've been a member of that commission to write an encyclopedia of the history of Cameroon. I was in that commission. They were not related. There is nothing in common between those two commissions. They were sponsored at different levels. This was under, the former was under the Ministry of Culture. And our commission that we have worked in the field, I don't want to say our commission because as I belong to both of those commissions. The first commission to write the history of Cameroon was under the Ministry of Culture. This commission to work on French influence in the nationalist movement in Cameroon was co-sponsored by the Cameroon government and the French government. Permit me say that this was the idea, because people have spoken about, you use a very interesting expression. It is rumored that popular opinion, I don't know how you measure the popular opinion. You know, there are some professional creators of polemics for personal interest, but I don't want to delve into those polemics. They were not the same. So we had no clashing views as far as that is concerned.
Professor Willie Broad Zingwa, there has also been this concern that some great historians were left out in the Franco-Cameroonian Commission. Don't you think that idea can play down on the findings of your investigations?
Polemics. I don't know what you mean by great historians. I don't know. Okay, well, let's assume we are baby historians.
But we're young historians.
I don't know what that means to you, because as journalists, you might be the ones promoting the notion of solid historians. I'm a full professor for many years with a big background in research. Permit me say this is not the first research I did. My institution carried out the first conflict map research in Cameroon. I delivered that results in Germany in November. So we are not babies in the field of research. And when we talk about the big names, you know, I have said that in my department of history of University of Yaoundé 1, we are about 50. If you got 7 out of the 50, 40.
And at the end of the interview, you told us off air that you are very satisfied with your investigation and your findings. Thank you again, Professor Willie Broad Zingwa, for accepting to be our guest tonight. Just to let our viewers know once again is that you were the only Anglophone who was selected to be part of the Franco-Cameroonian Commission, which was set up to investigate the atrocities caused by French nationals in Cameroon that was in the yesteryears. Thank you again, sir, and hope to have you some other time. Viewers, thank you so much for always being with us. Our programs continue tonight. Equinoxe comes up at 7 p.m. and the news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. Thank you again for being with us. See you again tomorrow, same time, God willing. Bye-bye for now.